Hi there, Michael Snow. Excellent, Michael. Unfortunately, I can't actually hear you. I'm wondering, can you guys hear me right now? Anybody? Okay, you guys can hear me. I can't actually hear anybody, so I'm just going to take a look here and see if I can come up with one of the, if there is a reason, why I can't actually hear you. It's probably be much better, I think, for all of us if I can actually hear you in the present. I just got some volume. I just heard. Yep, I can hear Nicole and Trevor, but I haven't heard Michael yet. But I can see you. Thumbs up and waving your hands up there. Okay. Well, there he is. Now I can hear you. Okay, so welcome to AI for Educators. Today we're going to be doing a two-part session, and in the second part of the session we're going to do the education part. We're going to do a collaborative discussion where I've got some questions that I'm going to be asking you guys to hopefully provide your feedback and talk a little bit about maybe what it is that you know about AI, or also do a bit of brainstorming. I've got some questions for you that so we can think about AI in the context of education. And in the first part of the presentation, I'm going to give you guys an overview of the AI industry. So it's a really big AI industry. I'm sure that you all have explored AI and you're looking, you've explored it, you're using it, you understand a lot about the industry as well. So we're just going to do a quick sort of run through of some of the AI companies. I'm actually just going to go ahead and click record and start the meeting. And then I'm going to, just do the screen share here. Okay. So before we start, I just want to say that VCC, the provider for this course, is located on the unceded and ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations, which have been stewarded by them since time immemorial. I'm grateful for the opportunity to take this course on these territories. So a little bit about me. My name is Yuri Trices. I'm a Canadian from Lithuanian African-American descent. I'm a web developer, researcher, and consultant. I come from a varied educational background, having studied formal sciences, history, literature, economics, and during the last 12 years, web development. Today I'm going to talk about AI in general, and then we're going to do some collaborative discussion about AI in teaching. So I've prepared some questions we can discuss in the collaborative part of our discussion. So I'm hoping you guys can maybe write these down, take a screenshot, think about them. Is AI an impediment to learning? Is the first question. Does it slow learning down? How about we guide students to learn more with AI as a tool? So we've got whether AI is an impediment, whether how we can guide students to use it as a tool, and what rules might educators want to enforce, if any, with respect to students' use of AI. We're going to come back to these questions after the first part of the presentation, when we do the collaborative part of the presentation, where I'm really excited about getting your guys' interactive feedback and hearing a little bit about what you have to say about these three questions and any other questions that you might have. So here, I asked Llama Maverick 4 to create this web page, which has a lot of logos of AI companies. The main point of this is that there's a lot of them, and that I didn't know what they all are. So I don't really expect that anybody is going to look at a screen like this and understand what all these companies are doing with AI. And the point that I want to make is that a lot of these companies are actually resellers of AI. And they do their own model fine-tuning, they have their own software, they're working with AI in the context of that software, they may have a specialized product. So we're just going to look at those big companies, those maybe 10 to 15 big companies that are the sort of the primary AI companies. So everybody knows about OpenAI. This is probably the most popular company. As you can see, I've got a t-shirt that says running on ChatGPT. I bought this from Redbubble. I was looking around, they had like an Anthropic t-shirt, but basically I think ChatGPT kind of, has got the trophy for having the best well-known brand. And so they're founded in 2016. They've got a massive market cap, a lot of employees. Their projected revenue for 2025 is $12.7 billion. So they're generative pre-trained transformer architecture. All of the models are using transformer architecture. The models are trained on diverse internet data and fine-tuning with reinforcement learning from human feedback. So that's kind of similar. Again, the models differ on the type of data that they use, but they're all using this transformer architecture. They're a broad consumer and development adoption focusing on general purpose AI. So as an educator, you've probably heard of GPT-4. This is the latest one. It does images, video, text. You can use it for everything. You pretty much can't go wrong with GPT-4. So there's a couple of papers here. You can take a screenshot of these. I wouldn't recommend, reading all of the papers. I'm just going to give you guys the information if you're really interested. I did a degree in economics, some statistical probability inference, some higher mathematical notation, and I can grasp a part of these papers. They're very complex. They're very high level. You can spend. It takes a lot of training for them to understand these. I mean, I get the general gist, but I definitely have to do a little bit more work. So I think in the context of AI for educators, we're not really talking about the science of AI as much as we are talking about how we're going to use it and how we're going to use the products and kind of the differences between the products as well. So Google Gemini is obviously it's Alphabet. They've got a market cap of $1.9 trillion, 180,000 employees. So this projected 2025 revenue is $1.9 billion. So the numbers on the top are for Google, and that projected revenue, which is about a sixth of the size of OpenAI, is their AI product. Their large-scale collaboration led by Google DeepMind, specialized flash models for low-latency applications, and here are a couple of their foundational technical papers. BERT is the bidirectional transformers, which really gives AI semantics and understanding. And pretty much all of the companies are using BERT. And then Gemini, if you wanted to dig into it, you can take a screenshot and you can look a little bit more at Gemini. I think in terms of understanding the differences between OpenAI and Google, it's pretty clear. Everybody knows what Google is, how to use Google. So you kind of get an idea of the brand. It's a safe brand that you can go with. MetaLlama 4 or MetaLlama, probably my favorite company, definitely the coolest of or arguably the coolest of the AI companies. And their thing is that they want AI to be democratized. So they're really focused on using only publicly available data sets. And obviously you would imagine that Google wouldn't be doing that because they have an incredibly valuable proprietary data set. So Facebook wants to make their models available for use for everyone. And that might be something that you might think about if you're using, the Facebook Llama Maverick 4 or the smaller Scout version. And so their foundational paper here, again, you can have a look at the Facebook Llama model paper. So Anthropic is this company that leaves OpenAI. So there are these founders, they're part of OpenAI, and actually a number of companies left OpenAI. Elon Musk left OpenAI and started his own AI company. And these founders of Anthropic also left OpenAI. And their main argument was that OpenAI is proprietary. They thought that they're focusing on the money too much and that might have some ethical considerations. So they've decided they're going to be a public benefit corporation prioritizing social good. And their flagship model is Claude, and this information theory, Claude Shannon, I think is what it's focused on, what the name is built from. So it's focused on AI and safety, and they've got this paper which is AI and safety, which I encourage you also to look into. So now we start looking at some of the Chinese companies, and this one obviously is Baidu Ernie. They're really massive. They've got the leader in the Chinese market. Maybe you noticed the BERT and the Ernie connection. It's funny, but when you read the papers, it's very complex as well. It's funny in a complex way. So they're powering applications with rapid user growth, And the models integrate structured knowledge. So that's the Ernie paper. And this one is another Chinese company, and they're arguably as written about as OpenAI. I'm just gonna have to fix my camera here. There seems to be a bit of a problem with the camera. Just bring that back on. Okay, so they're a Chinese company. They don't really put all of their information out there, but their projected revenue for 2025 is $100 million, and they've got multimodal capacity as well. I actually used a free version of DeepSeek, and I asked it to answer kind of a relatively 1,000 tokens or something, and it just went on for pages and pages and pages. Okay, so Quinn Alibaba, this is probably one of my favorite AI models. They've got an instruct model, a smaller model. If you hear the name Quinn, just know that they are doing something a little bit different, and that gives them kind of a competitive edge. The Alibaba model, the Quinn models, they perform as well as some of the larger models, and there's their technical paper. And then, of course, we have Grok, Elon Musk's company, which is projected to have 100 million revenue, and they're inspired by The Stranger in the Strange Land, where Grok means to understand something deeply and intuitively. And then there's also a comic book series about Grok, which is a clone created for the body of Andre Frost after the Martian masters had killed him and forced his daughter Camilla to replicate him. So I don't know what that means about where Elon Musk's mind is, or where Twitter. This is based on, the thing about Grok is it's all the live updated Twitter data. So if you're ever looking for live information, you may want to go to Grok. They're known for being witty, rebellious, edgy, and their responses are designed to answer questions that other AI systems might avoid. So I hope you've all heard about Perplexity. They are where you might be concerned your students are going to get their answers. This is where Perplexity, you can just ask it to write a paper for you. It'll go ahead, it'll write your paper for you. It'll inject all the references, and it does a really fantastic job of that. They have 100 million in revenue projected for 2025. That's built off of 20 million in revenue. So they're growing incredibly fast, and they're really about conversational AI that can synthesize information in multiple sources. It's basically RAG operations, so retrieval, augmentation, generation. They mix the sources with the generation, and they verify it. So this is probably, you may want to go there to work on your papers and things like that. So other large companies, these are sort of the 5, 6, there's maybe 10, but Amazon, their proprietary private data. IBM, they were famous back in the Watson day for being the first AI company that beat humans at Jeopardy, but then they kind of flopped, and now they've got Granite AI, which does everything that the other AI does. And the thing about IBM is that they've got all of the custom industry customers. So they're actually a really massive and doing really well. So you would probably trust the name of the IBM Granite. And then of course Microsoft is GPT, and there's these smaller companies that are loaded with scientists, and the Mistral is a French company. They open source a lot of their models, so a lot of these other companies use them, and Black Forest Labs is kind of the European sort of powerhouse. So Microsoft, of course, uses both Mistral and Black Forest Labs. So that's really it. I hope I didn't bore you guys too much with the discussion of AI. I find it really interesting. It's a challenging sort of field to present. Now we're getting to the sort of collaborative section, but I just want to ask you guys if you had any questions, or you wanted to talk a little bit about any of those models. We're going to look at that, and it's one of the questions. So I'm going to give you guys a link that you can go to where you can paste the work, and it's going to tell you how much of that work is AI generated. And there's actually a number of different products. I've just been looking at one of them. Another thing that you can always do is you can ask AI itself. You can ask another AI the same question. So you could ask 3 AI and see if you get any different answers. And then there is an area where there is questions that you can ask AI, and you can see what the response is about things that don't exist, that you can ask them in a way that is suggestive that they do exist. So the primary example, and I don't want to use this example because it comes off of Reddit, but it's like it's marathon. You ask AI, when was Marathon, crater on the moon first explored? And if the AI gives you a time and gives you a place and talks about it as if it exists, then you kind of know that it's bluffing because it doesn't exist. And if the AI says, I don't have any information about that, I don't know if that exists, then you know that it's maybe an instruct model, it's got fewer parameters, it's specialized in some way, or maybe trained in some way to be more responsible with respect to that data. Okay, so we're moving along here. So we've got 3 questions, and this is the first one. Is AI an impediment to learning, and does it slow student learning? So I'm hoping that one of you guys, or 2 or 3 of you, are going to sort of step up and, provide your input. How would you like to use it in your classroom? Yeah, they're definitely working on it. I haven't explored it, but they're calling it agentic AI, as far as I understand. So yeah, so that's great. Great to hear your perspective. And anyone else? Yeah, right. It definitely speaks to the idea of whether or not AI is an impediment, whether or not it does slow student learning. Yeah, that sounds like. That's one of the things that we can actually look at the answers. I think there are some answers. And AI says over-reliance on AI tools can hinder the development of critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Excessive use of AI-powered resources such as grammar and spell checkers can impede language learning and writing skills, and AI-assisted tools can create a dependency on technology, potentially undermining students' ability to work independently. I really think that, personally, what you're talking about is how useful it is and how helpful it is. And I would say exactly the same thing. For example, it mostly did a lot of the work for this presentation. I had the template, but it kind of took the data and put it into the template. So I personally find it incredibly useful and helpful. I'm going to go on to the next question here. And this is, how might we guide students to learn more with AI as a tool? I'm just going to open this up to any of you that would like to speak to it. Absolutely, I agree, 100%. I think basically, I'm not teaching, managing a classroom. I think that the collaborative aspect of any kind of learning, any kind of education is obviously critically important. So to the extent that you are getting your students to think, to learn, and obviously using AI as a tool is the direction that we're moving in. So I would almost say it's kind of mandatory that students are learning and using AI to some extent. Okay, well, I'll just, so AI's got some answers here. So they say encourage critical thinking and problem solving using AI-generated content, which is exactly what Trevor was saying. Implement AI-assistive adaptive learning systems for personalized education, and teach students to evaluate AI-generated information for accuracy and bias. And this was what Nicole was, or maybe it was Trevor, was talking about, how can we check the students. So I just want to, there's a link here to a website that AI built with Hugo. And you could go to that. That's the asynchronous presentation as well. So this last question is probably, this is the last question. So we are approaching the end of the session. So this last question is drawing a line in the sand. So it's what rules might educators want to enforce, if any, with respect to students' use of AI? And this really speaks to also about, whether or not it's rules, whether or not it's guidance, whether or not we're talking about self-directed learning or behaviorist learning. It kind of speaks to some of the content that you guys may have explored in the course that we're covering. Anyone wanted to, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I totally agree in terms of the fact that AI can always be a crutch or a tool. So in the context of getting AI to generate your classroom material, it's the opposite side of the coin, but it's the same as if students are using AI to generate their papers. So ultimately, students are going to be using AI to generate their papers, and instructors are going to be using AI to generate their notes, generate their slides, generate their presentations, and they're going to be doing it often, as you say, in the context of the classroom. So I think that in terms of, keeping your students excited and interested in the material, I would say that's up to, as you mentioned, to your stakeholders, your organization, the culture of your university, how much people use AI. But I am just going to show you guys a link to this verification. So this is ZeroGPT, and this is really where we can take a look at how much AI is generated, how much the content is generated by AI. So we can take an example. For example, we could ask the question of what we were looking at in the last slide here, and I'll just pop back to the slide. What rules might educators want? And we can go ahead and we can ask AI what rules might educators want to enforce in a classroom to ensure students are using AI, let's say, appropriately. And then we can ask one of these AI models. Let's go ahead. I have to put in some data here. Let me just make sure that I get that in correctly. And we will ask MetaLlama Maverick. We'll actually ask NVIDIA, which is also, it's NVIDIA 3.1, and this is Llama Maverick. It's going to give us an answer. And we can take this, and we can go ahead and we can insert this into the AI Trusted Detector. And then we'll go ahead and we'll detect the text. And it's going to give us a number, which is going to say 50.88% AI GPT generated. So I think that's really something that you can bring to stakeholders. It's something you can bring to your organization. It's something you can bring to your students, where you can decide what line you're going to draw. You're going to say whether it can be 10%, whether it can be 15%. It kind of gives you some kind of a framework or some kind of foundation that you can build on in terms of deciding what amount of AI is appropriate. And so this is zerogpt.com, and there's actually a number of these, which I encourage you guys to explore. So it actually looks like we're running out of time. There's still 9 minutes left in the meeting. But did you guys have any other questions that you wanted to talk about with respect to AI? Anything about maybe the thinking, the token use, the parameters, the size of the models, prices, anything like that? That's the big question. So I actually like Grok. Grok is probably one of my favorite AIs. I use Llama Maverick 4. I'm using AI in the context of Emacs, so I've got a number of different models, actually GPT, Gemini, Grok, as well as Llama Maverick 4, and then some Minstrel models. And there are routers and companies that you can use that are open access, where you can sign up for them, and you're going to be getting an API key. And if you can use them in your browser, and then you can also use the models with an API key simply through, it's kind of probably sounds complex, but through curl code or in the context of an application, which is how you saw me using it there through OpenRouter. Well, some of the foundational models are from Canadian researchers. For example, I think there's a Canadian researcher on Attention is All You Need, which is one of the transformer architecture. Or possibly I'm thinking of there's a 2003 paper, which is basically a seminal paper as far as I'm concerned, which is, I think, Baggio 2003 is also a Canadian researcher. In terms of whether or not Canadians have a large scale company, I wouldn't know. I suspect that the answer is that we're doing what France is doing in terms of, France has got Mistral, and Mistral has got a lot of high-end researchers that are open sourcing a lot of their information and their technology. So my guess is that Canada is probably very well represented in terms of AI science, but possibly, everything comes out of Silicon Valley, right, and China. So, pretty much everyone's going to tell you that, like, let's say you're pursuing venture capital or something, everything basically comes out of Silicon Valley. There's probably a lot of Canadian investors in Silicon Valley, but I wouldn't really know too much about that. I would challenge you to sort of maybe do a little research on that as well, possibly. That's an excellent question. Does anybody want to speak to that? Any closing thoughts? All right, thank you. Can you guys see that? I've got the meeting chat is up on the screen. I'm sharing the screen. It's right there. Yeah, it's almost a spitting image of him. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty incredible the way that the image generation technologies are moving. A lot of the companies that do like have a web platform and they're providing image generation, they seem to be different than just GPT-4, or Image One, or DALL-E. So that's a really good image. Most of these companies require subscriptions. There are a lot of free models that you can get, again, through the open companies like OpenRouter, where you can explore some of the different free models. Most companies have a free service as well. So, for example, Brave has an AI called Leo, which you can just use directly in the browser, which is free, and actually, which is pretty good. Perplexity has a free, you can just Google Perplexity, you can use their free research tool. And so there are a lot of free products. Typically, the smaller models are around like $1 to $2 for input tokens. And then usually it's somewhere, maybe like if it's an older model, it'll be $1 for input token and $1 for the output tokens in US dollars. And if it's a reasonable model, it'll be around $2 for input tokens, maybe $5 for the output tokens. And then the really expensive models start to get anywhere where it's upwards of $10 for the input tokens. And the difference, the tokens, you use like a 2,000 word, let's say an 800 word paper could be, and I'm kind of going on memory here, we're talking around, like a token is about 3 characters of a word. So we're talking about a third of 3 times the tokens. So we're talking 800 words could be, I find, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 tokens. And those prices are per million tokens, which is pretty inexpensive. I'm guessing that image looks like a pretty good image. So I'm thinking that image itself is maybe 3 cents. Is that how much you paid for it? Okay, yeah.